Well, I'm just going to do a quick introduction, kind of just lay of the land with this event. I'm Damon Clinkscales. I've been doing the Startup Grind in Austin for a little bit more than 2 years. It's a global community. There are like 500 cities that have chapters around the world, so it's a very global and diverse organization. So it's really cool when we do like every. Whoa. Whoa. That is so wild. Sorry. And who knew that I was on a delay? I guess streaming is not quite as magical as I thought. Um, anyway, so in February they have this event out in Silicon Valley, the Startup Grind Global Conference, and you get to meet directors from all over the world, and people travel from all over the world to come, and they want to visit Silicon Valley, and they've maybe been touched by Startup Grind in their area of the world, and they'll make the trek. They'll come over to the U.S., and it's really cool. So Austin has had this chapter for 5 or 6 years, and we've been in Capital Factory in this space since they opened this space, and I think it's been since around the time that I came in and started doing it. So a little bit over 2 years since this space was open. Anyway, so we have, if you need to use the restroom, if you haven't already, they're out in the hotel. They're not in this room. So feel free to do that. And so let's see, I told you a bit about Startup Grind. Connect, educate, and inspire. Those are the 3 kind of values that we have. We bring folks on stage who have kind of been there and done that. We have investors, we have entrepreneurs from the local scene. So the idea behind it is each community around the world, it's a place for people to come together, talk about what they're working on, learn from people who have kind of done cool stuff, had some hard times, had some good times, and we try to get on stage and talk about that. I want to thank Capital Factory for this space. This is a beautiful space, and they let us use it. So we're grateful for that. And we have a sponsor tonight, Egan Nelson and Silicon Hills Lawyer. They're kind of go together. They are sponsoring Startup Grind this year, so we really appreciate them. They're world-class counsel for startups if you're looking for an attorney for your startup. All right. Now I should introduce our guest, Mr. Mark Phillip. Let me pull up our event here. Just 1 second. Okay, and we'll keep it brief, right? Did you give me a really long bio? No. Okay. All right. Read more. Okay, so Mark Phillip is the founder of Are You Watching This, a B2B sports excitement analytics company using patented algorithms to identify instant classics in the making in real time. A Brooklyn native, MIT dropout, and lifelong Yankees fan, Mark is obsessed with enhancing the game-watching experience through digital and physical innovation, whether it's teaching a DVR to automatically extend recording time of a game that's going into overtime, or hand-building a wireless LED excitement meter for every TV in his favorite sports bar. When he's not watching cricket at 4 a.m., you'll find him working to improve diversity and equity in the tech community and mentoring at schools, accelerators, and incubators all around Austin. So there's the bio. Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome, Mr. Mark Phillip.
Thank you, Damon.
Yes.
Thanks for coming out, everybody. I know it's like lava stepping outside, so I appreciate you risking melting and coming out tonight.
So one thing I didn't mention is kind of the structure of the event. Obviously, we hung out, we had some food. We're going to do our chat now, and I'll have time to chat with Mark. I'll have some questions, but we'll also just kind of let the conversation go wherever it goes, wherever we want it to go. And then at the end, sort of the last at least 20 minutes or so, perhaps more, you guys will get a chance to ask all your questions that you have after hearing our conversation, and have more time to chat with Mark and your fellow compatriots afterwards too. There's plenty of time. We might even go to a bar afterwards, after it's all over, if folks are still around and interested in that.
Firehouse at 8:30.
So he's calling it. It's his place. They have sports on, I'm guessing?
Usually movies, but
okay.
we'll make it
Okay,
work.
we're going to have to make an adjustment there for them. But, all right, well, anywho, so let's get started, I guess. What I like to do just at the beginning of these chats is kind of talk about kind of where you come from, where you were born, how you came up, and how that kind of has helped shape who you are today.
Sure. My name is Mark Phillip. Brooklyn native. Grew up right on the border of Canarsie in East New York. If you know New York City well, take the 4 train to the last stop in Brooklyn, go a little bit further. I was out that way. Went to high school in downtown Brooklyn. Went to college at MIT. On my last final, January of my senior year, I was taking the final in this massive gymnasium, and I hear this thud. And I look over to the right, and I don't see anything, but I see a girl's legs shaking. She was having a seizure in the middle of the final. Paramedics came in, took her out on a stretcher, the whole 9 yards, and they didn't stop the final. That was my last event at MIT. I joined a startup after that that I sure was going to make me a millionaire. It didn't exactly work out. Instead, moved down to Austin, joined a company called Trilogy Software. I thought I'd be here for 2 years. 19 years later, I'm still here. Worked there for 4. Had a tough stretch in 2004 personally. I'm an only child with a single parent. And so when my mom passed away in 2004, it was a low point. So I took severance, moved to Hawaii, bought a pink scooter, gained 15 pounds, and completely reset my life. One of the smartest decisions I've ever made, to take a step back and take a break. Came back to Austin, joined T3, an advertising firm here in town, and then was there for about 2 years before I got the bug to start Are You Watching This? And I've been doing it for, I actually looked it up today, 13 years and 14 days as of today. Thanks.
He's still in business.
Still in business. Somehow my head's still above water.
And it's been smooth ever since you started.
Oh, easy. No, easy. I started in 2006. I think the real impetus for it was I went to South by Southwest in March of 2006. And I remember feeling like the synapses in my brain were just firing faster. Like it was amazing. And I remember seeing the screen with all these words on it flowing down, and I didn't know what it was, and it was this new thing called Twitter. And I didn't get it then, and I don't get it now. But that was really what lit the fire. And a few months later was when I quit my job to start working Are You Watching This? Coded for about 4 months straight, barely left the house, didn't have much human interaction. But the idea is, could I build a way to figure out when sporting events got exciting? I hated the idea of waking up the next morning and realizing there was a great game on TV, and I was watching Braveheart for the umpteenth time, and I didn't know something great was happening. So part of the inspiration was a site called Slick Deals. It's this little forum site where people post deals on random things, like cheap betting or discounted Domino's. And I thought, if I can have an army of people searching for great deals, why can't I have an army of people reminding me when there's a great game on TV? So the idea built, eventually found a way to automate it, and I quit my job in August 2006. Engine went live in January 2007. And for the sports fans out there, our first alert was Boise State, Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl. I don't know if there's a question there. I feel like I'm just yapping.
No, that's all good. It's all good. So have you always been into sports then?
I have.
You said you're a lifelong Yankees fan. So
Lifelong Yankees fan. I think we're going to win it all this year, if we can just not all get injured. Growing up in New York, I think is a little different because we're so saturated with pro sports. There aren't really a lot of college teams you can fall in love with in New York City. And so moving to Austin was different for me. Seeing a college football Saturday where everyone's wearing burnt orange was intimidating at first. So for me, I didn't get into college sports until much later. But pro sports, we have a team in every league and sometimes multiple. So Yankees and Mets, Jets and Giants. So it wasn't about if you like sports, it was which team you were going to back, which I think makes being a New York fan, maybe even an LA fan, is I think a little different than for most people.
So maybe you can walk us through some of the early moments with Are You Watching This when you started out?
Sure.
Were you making money? I mean, how long did you have to go where you were sort of getting money from other sources because you didn't have any customers?
I mean, it's not like I had savings or anything.
Right. That would be too smart, right?
Why? All right,
Save all your
I was
money.
26. I'll get bought out in 18 months. How hard can this be, right? So I got started and went live in January '07, and there's an article about me on TechCrunch in February '07. So at that point, I said, I'm done. Like, here it comes. Here comes the millions of dollars. It didn't exactly work out that way. Right around then, the financial downturn started to happen. And I think I'm getting ahead of myself. Figuring out when games get exciting is the core. You know, giving someone that digital tap on the shoulder when it's time to run to the couch. Now, we're a B2B company. There isn't an app that you can download for Are You Watching This? We take this data, we sell it to big players like the CBS Sports of the world, Golf Digest, Bleacher Report, and they all bake it into their apps. So we're white labeled. We're the guy behind the guy helping sort of pull the strings. So getting that first customer was really hard. I'm young, I am rough around the edges, all I know is coding, I don't know sales or business development, and I just walk in there kind of stumbling saying, please use my code. And so it was hard. And then when the financial downturn happened, it got pretty dark. Cleaned out my 401k, cleaned out my savings, because to make the system work, I had to buy data, live data. So I needed pitch by pitch, shot by shot sports data. Anytime something happened, I needed to know about it. I also needed TV data. So which game is on which channel? Does someone in 78705 get this game? Does someone in 66604 get this game? So paying for the sports data, paying for the TV data, paying for my servers, I was spending about $7K a month. Credit cards maxed out. I had a credit score of 1 at one point, which isn't supposed to be possible, but I found a way. Mortgage folks calling all the time, threatening foreclosure. I would unplug my landline, because I still had a landline. I'd unplug it and plug it back in when I needed to make a call, because it would just ring all day, just ring and ring and ring and ring. And it was hard. And then a competitor showed up. That was probably the first scary moment. I got an email from a guy who was a VC at a place called Draper Fisher Jurvetson. They're one of the better known VCs. And I used to know his email by heart, but I've forgotten some of it. Basically, it was saying, you've probably heard of us. We're a big deal. We'd love to chat more. He wrote from his VC account. He flew down to Austin a few months later and said, hey, I'm going to be in town. I'd love to buy you dinner. So we went over to the tavern at 12th and Lamar, one of my favorite sleeper sports bar choices. And I bought dinner for him and his co-founder. And I didn't really understand what was happening there, but he was writing lots of notes. And when he wasn't looking, after asking me question after question after question about what I was up to, I went and I paid the bill. It's $40, a couple burgers and a couple beers at the tavern, which ended up being a really important move, which I'll get to later. But 3 months later, he launched a clone of Are You Watching This? Down to lifting parts of the FAQ. Like, it was blatant. And I think a lot of that came from the difference between the Bay Area and Austin. I think there's a lot of Bay Area feel that we're the place to be, and if you're not in the Bay Area or if you haven't raised funding, it's because you haven't been able to or you can't afford to move here. So I think there's a little bit of hubris, but it started a very long competition between our two companies that still goes on today.
Do you care to mention the name of the company?
I try not to. I mean, I don't want to. It doesn't really matter. They exist. I am a one-man shop that's self-funded. They are a 15-person company with $12 million in funding, and we go toe-to-toe.
So you seem to take great pride in the fact that you are kind of this lone wolf
Yeah.
who is taking on the big guy.
Sure.
Is that accurate?
I like to punch above my weight.
Okay. Why is that so important to you?
That's a great question. I don't like bullies, and I don't like people that are push when they shouldn't push. I think it's fun going after this competitor. There's nothing that can get you up in the morning faster than hearing someone pitch their story as your own, or pitch your story as their own. It's like 5 cups of coffee. We're on a live feed, so I can't tell you one of my favorite stories. But if you come to Firehouse at 8:30, I'll tell you guys a story. But I mean, I've gotten on a plane just to heckle him. I flew out to San Francisco because he was on a panel, just so I could heckle him at this panel. It was the San Francisco Sports Tech Meetup, and he was talking on it. So I flew out. It's scary having a competitor, especially one that is better funded than you are. But I didn't get my first customer until my competitor appeared. Because before that, it was just Mark down in Austin doing some weird things with algorithms. But once I had a competitor that was spending money on PR and raising funds, all of a sudden it was the sports excitement analytics space. And so I won't say that I floated in their wake, but I will say that they brought attention to everyone, even though they were just trying to bring attention to themselves.
Yeah, having competitors is not necessarily a bad thing. It validates the market.
Absolutely. I think that was 2009 when they launched, or 2010 actually, early 2010. And then my first customer was late 2010. And I'd love to say that it was me doing some great ninja work to make it happen, but a lot of it was my competitor made so much noise that it allowed me to land the first folk.
So tell us about that deal.
Sure.
That was a turning point.
That was a turning point, getting the first one, absolutely. It was for a company called Sporting News. They were, 100-plus-year-old publication. They had a real vibe towards baseball. And the CEO called me one day and said, hey, we want to use your data in our iPad app. And the reason why I did that was because I knew him from when he worked at Sports Illustrated. So I had pitched Sports Illustrated on some things, and one of those meetings was the first time my luggage got lost. One of many times. I'm on the road a lot. I travel a lot as a one-man shop. Yes, I'm CEO and founder and lead developer, but I'm also head of sales and lead janitor and all those sorts of things. And I landed in New York, and I think this time it was Delta that had lost my bag. Got to the Sports Illustrated event, or meeting. We have it, and they said, hey, we're having a shindig tonight. Do you want to come? I was like, yeah, I'll probably sneak in. Like, yeah, sure. What is it? He's like, oh, it's the swimsuit edition launch party. You should come out. I was like, great. And I remember there's a picture of me with just the most ill-fitting clothes that I just bought at Gap like hours before, next to 2 swimsuit models. And it is the most awkward photo. It is buried somewhere. Thankfully, I don't have a digital copy, or else I'm sure it would have leaked out by now. But staying in touch with the Sports Illustrated folks, even though things didn't go well, was what got me that first deal at Sporting News. The first deal begat the second begat the third. But being in B2B, getting that first customer is the hardest thing. Going from 0 to 1 helps you go from 1 to 2 and 2 to 3. But getting that first one in 2010, 2011-ish was massive for me.
So it seems like networking maybe has played a huge role, maybe as you've gone along, in terms of keeping a network, building your network, making trips, just to touch base with people. Is that accurate that you just you've done a lot of that, and it might be instructive to talk about what you do?
It is, but I wasn't good at it. I think I'm okay at it now. I'm a developer and I'm an introvert. I just want to code all day. Nothing would make me happier than being able to code all day. But I think for a lot of developers, we think, if I just keep building cool stuff, it'll all work out. And that's just not the case. If you're not able to articulate why something is valuable, then it's just not going to work. And I think many developers are conditioned, I don't know if that's the right word, but to think like sales is for someone else. It's like a dirty, skeezy thing. Like, I want to stay with a pure code, versus people that are more in sales and biz dev, they're told, oh, that stuff was too hard, keep doing what you're doing. But if you could blend those together, a coder that can sell, a seller that's dangerous with code, it allows you to build interesting things and then explain and articulate why it's interesting. Because if you don't have both sides of that house, then you're not going to get off the ground. And that hamstrung me for a while. I didn't really know what I was doing. I remember walking in with like a backpack, I remember, for one meeting. And I think back, I really had a backpack? There are lots of reasons why things went well, but a lot of reasons why things didn't go well. But these days I spend a lot of time on the road. I've had a nice stretch, maybe about 6 weeks where I haven't traveled anywhere. But I think in the next 4 weeks, I'm in San Francisco, Vegas, Atlanta, London, Chicago, and Amsterdam. No middle seats yet, hopefully. Hopefully the seat map stays clean. But I spend a lot of time just saying hello to people and selling the way I know how to sell. My mom was a liberal arts major, quiet. My dad was a used car salesman, not quiet. And as I grow older, I can see myself more in each of them, different parts of my personality. So my sales pattern is staying in touch, taking copious notes. I'm not someone that's always great with faces or who can remember everything about someone right away. So I take notes on everything. I have a system called, or a product I use called HighRise. If you're just starting something or if you've been doing something for a while, I can't recommend it enough. It's a free version. There's no reason not to get started with it. HighRise. It came out of 37 Signals, the folks that made Basecamp. I think it like spun off and they brought it back in, they spun it off again, I don't know, but find HighRise, it's great. And it just has a couple important features. When I write an email, I can add a special BCC address, and so whatever I email gets sucked right into the system and associated with whoever I'm emailing him. And then I can just take notes and write just ad hoc notes about anyone. And so I can write down, this person has twins, this person loves barbecue, this person is a Seminoles fan. So when I'm reaching out, if I don't maybe feel comfortable because I'm an introvert that just wants to be coding all day, I can bring up little tidbits and say, hey, I saw that great win by the Knowles last weekend. Congrats on that. By the way, here's a new product that we're working on. Or remembering to stop at Salt Lake and buying that sauce gift pack when I'm going to New York, because I know this one guy at CBS just adores that stuff. And it's the easiest $15 investment to keep things warm. So I don't think I'm a traditional seller, but as someone that self-identifies as an introvert and a coder that just wants to be coding all day, I found a method that works for me.
Yeah, I think that developers have a tendency to disrespect sales and marketing until they have to do it themselves.
Sure, and it's hard to identify what's good and what's not. I got an email on the Contact Us form of my site. This was maybe 2009 or so. And the email was from a guy named Dag Kitlaus. And the subject line was hello with 9 O's in it. And so I roll my eyes. I'm like, okay, who's this guy? And I know how hard outbound sales can be. So I try to reply to everyone. So he says he's working on a project. He sent me the website. And he said, can we have a call? I want to use your data. So I said, sure. We hopped on a call. We're chatting. And I'd looked at his website. It was built in Flash. This was almost a decade ago. And it was something about you could tell your phone you wanted a restaurant reservation and it would get it for you. I didn't really understand it. But we had the chat and he said, we'd love to use your data. We can't pay you any money. We'll just send you traffic. And I said, well, that doesn't really work for me. I'm a B2B company. Traffic doesn't do anything. I really got to stick to my guns here. But stay in touch. And if things go well, just reach back out and we'll get something done. If you Google Dag Kitlaus, most likely his Wikipedia article will come up because he was the founder of a small little startup called Siri, who was bought up by Apple about 12 months later. And I told them I didn't want to work with him, which was a master stroke on my part. You get things wrong. And I got that one loud wrong. Like I completely whiffed on that. If I wasn't able to laugh at myself, I would have jumped off a bridge by now. Sales don't come naturally to me, and I've found something that works for me, and I get a lot right, but there's definitely a lot that I get wrong too.
Is there any lessons you can share from your time going through this that you would give to the other entrepreneurs here? Things that you find to be true based on your real experiences?
this will sound cheesy, but when I'm selling, I just try to be nice. I try to stay in touch. I still go toe-to-toe with my competitor all the time. And in these conversations, I always get the same question. And I always see it coming because the person always pauses and sort of looks down before they ask me. And they say, okay, we love all this stuff, but what do you think about Thews? Thews is my competitor. And I always pause and I say, you know what? I root for Thews. I bought them dinner when they were first getting started. They're not quite there yet, but I root for them. And being able to say that with a straight face, it's the best $40 I've ever spent in my life. Because it changes the whole tenor. Because when they look on paper and they see 15 employees, 12 million in funding, one-man shop, being able to sort
funding.
of... What's that?
No funding.
No funding. My Series A was Chase and American Express. Being able to sort of reshape the conversation and the tone of the conversation has been extremely valuable. I don't know if that works for everyone. I don't know that it's eventually going to work. But my strategy has been being nice and being genuine and staying in touch with people, and it's working so far.
I guess, at what point did you actually become profitable and you were able to stop paying all these hosting bills and things and going into debt? That had to have been just a killer moment for you.
I was in the San Francisco airport, and I got an alert from Mint that I got a big deposit. That was it. That was 2013. I built a smartphone app in 2011 where you could sync with your TV, and you could swipe from game to game, and it would jump from channel to channel on your TV. And it was like magic. And I made a 2-minute video of it. I paid too much to film this commercial in my living room. I don't think my living room's ever been so clean. Filmed this 2-minute video, published it out, and somehow it got on some mailing list for companies in Australia. Within a week, I got an email from Fox Sports Australia and Telstra, which is kind of like the Comcast of Australia, $60 billion company. They both reach out of the blue. I end up signing a deal with Telstra, and they were launching a sports brand. You can kind of think of it as if, let's say, I don't know, Yahoo. They're kind of like if Comcast was going to launch a customer-facing sports brand. They were going to launch Telstra Sports, essentially, but they didn't have anything. But they wanted to use our algorithm to figure out when games were getting exciting. And because so much of Australia is so sports mad, but they follow a lot of sports that aren't in Australia, so it's really time-shifted, helping them figure out what to keep track of and summarizing what might have happened while they were asleep was really important. So they wanted our algorithm. We used the algorithm, built them iOS and Android apps. For Sports Fan was the name of the brand. The headwinds from ESPN Australia and Fox Sports Australia were too strong, so it only lasted for about 4 years. But that was the point where I could pay off all the bills that were still languishing and have been profitable since 2013.
That's awesome. And you've had contractors along the way every so often when you had to, get a little bit of help, right? I mean,
Yeah.
You don't have any employees though.
No, I don't.
That's a conscious thing, right?
I don't play well with others, I guess.
You just want to do this thing alone. You got to stand alone here.
Yeah, I think part of that is being an only child.
Yeah.
I think part of that is I started in a lot of ways too early with my tech. So we spend so much time sort of ahead of the curve that I don't need to go faster coding-wise. If I had to hire one, I'd probably hire a salesperson or a biz dev person so that I wasn't on planes as often as I am. But I know that when I got started, everyone said it wasn't going to work. All the VCs, all the investors said you're never going to get anyone to ever pay you money for this. And there is pattern matching that is done when we talk about investment. When we look at the stats for the people that are getting investment, it's extremely skewed. Underrepresented minorities and women don't get the same amount of funding. To me, it is important to be successful. Not just for me, but I think my company is bigger than just me. The success of my company is bigger than just me. And it's important to smash these patterns, these molds of what a traditional entrepreneur is supposed to look like. And I tell myself, and maybe this is a rationalization, I don't know, but if I can get over this hump to success, whatever success is defined as, and I don't know what it is, but if I can get there, and I can do it as a solo black CS guy, then the hammer that comes down on that mold, the hammer through the glass ceiling, I think it hits with a little bit more force. That how did we miss this? I'm 13 years in. There are times when I say, maybe I did this wrong. You know, maybe I should have taken this terrible valuation and raised lots of money and gone a different route. But I'm kind of pot committed at this point. You know, this is the path that I've taken, and Are You Watching This is going to be the first sentence of the second paragraph of my obituary. It is my life's work, and 26-year-old Mark didn't know that, and 26-year-old Mark probably would have been scared by that. But almost 41-year-old Mark is leaning in and is all about that.
Awesome. Well, so let's talk a little bit about diversity in tech and your efforts here in Austin, or the efforts of others that you work with. If there's anything you kind of can talk about there, or you want to tell us about.
We need more.
Yeah.
I mentored as many places as I can. I resigned from one mentor job recently, which is the first time I've ever done, over disagreements about diversity in tech and how we set the KPIs about what diversity in tech means. I am proud to be a board member for the Austin Center for Design, a wonderful design school on the East Side run by a brilliant guy named John Kulko. Founded by John Kulko, run by Ruby Koo. It's about 12 to 15 people that learn super intensive UX and figure out how to solve social ills through design. One of my favorite places to mentor. And right next to it, literally across the street from each other, is DivInc, who we have some wonderful DivInc people in the front row. Brooke and Preston have, and Dana and lots of people over the years have built an amazing program that is titled a Pre-Accelerator, but focused on entrepreneurs that are women and people of color. And it isn't an even playing field right now. And so to make it an even playing field, force has to be exacted. And so I do as much as I can to help programs that I think are pushing in the right direction to increase diversity in tech.
Great.
Because,
Yeah.
Sorry,
Go for it.
the more diverse the tech, the better the products. If we have the same people as entrepreneurs, we have the same products that keep coming out over and over again. And it's not just diversity of person, it's diversity of thought. That's why you see so many Me Too apps coming out of the Bay, and it's easy to rip on the Bay, but I don't like the Bay when it comes to their tech scene. I mean, that we have like 10 scooter companies. I mean, isn't there some other idea we can come up with that we're not just pouring money into? So I believe it makes financial sense, and I think it makes just quality of life sense.
All right. So let's talk just briefly about your business in the last year. Some major changes have happened, and you've changed your focus. Could you tell us about what happened and kind of where things are going with your business?
Sure, a quick history lesson. Important products for me: sports excitement analytics, figuring out when games get exciting; a DVR extender, predicting how long a game's going to run before it even starts; social content, video highlights. I have all these things. But the biggest new cog has been sports gambling. So up until last year, you could really only legally gamble in a few places. Places like Nevada, places like casinos owned by Native American tribes. There were a few little pockets. But Mayor Chris Christie, on his way out the door, had a court case go up to the Supreme Court that said it's not fair that Nevada can have gambling and New Jersey can't. The Supreme Court said, yeah, you're right. And so PASPA got overruled, got thrown out. The professional act, sports, something, I can never remember what it is. But from there, it became open. Any state could make sports gambling legal. Right now, we have 10 states that have made it legal and are online. There are another 10 states that it's legal, not yet online. But it's slowly coming online for each state, roughly about the pace of marijuana. I think it's roughly the same pace, even though it's not always the same states. But New Jersey was really the first one because Chris Christie was really pushing the rock there. They went live right away. Folks like FanDuel, we all remember that FanDuel brand, has a physical sports book in New Jersey at the Meadowlands. It's a cross between a sports bar and a sports book. In May, more money for sportsbook was bet in New Jersey than Nevada. 40% of the bets that FanDuel is taking in their sportsbook are in-game bets. When you think of sports gambling as, I'm going to put $50 on the Longhorns to win. What if it's, I'm going to put $2 on whether this putt's going to go in. I'm going to put $3 on if this guy's going to get on base or strike out. This sort of microtransaction to sort of keep that fuel running for the entire game instead of just plunking something down has changed the calculus of everything. And so I've a bunch of smart friends that keep tabs on this. And so I had a feeling that this was coming. So I felt ready for it when it happened, but still I feel like a chicken with my head cut off. I spend 80% of my hours of the day these days dealing with gambling data, pulling in gambling data. I think our company processes data from about 13 different sports books right now. Every book will set different lines, and without getting too much into it, some book might say, okay, this team's favored by 3 points, this team is favored by 3.5 points. There might be some differences. But pulling that all together is opening some really interesting possibilities when you marry it with excitement and you marry it with an interesting trend called snack passes, which has really been pioneered by the NBA. Rewind 10 years. If you wanted to watch online NBA, you had to pay $250, $300. You got access to every single game. Then they said, okay, that's a lot. Let's say you just want to watch my horrible hometown Knicks. You could pay $80, you get access to all of their games. Still a lot. Maybe you just want to buy one game. We'll let you buy digital access for $8. You can buy the fourth quarter of a game for $1.99, and they just quietly launched 10 minutes of action for 99 cents. So we're not buying the whole discography. I can't say that word. Discography, is that the word? Discography?
I think so. It's not widely used.
The entire oeuvre of a band. You can buy one track. 10 minutes of action for 99 cents. So if you take these snack passes, you take excitement ratings, you take snack passes, excitement ratings, and gambling, you put it in a big pot, you stir it around. You get an alert that says, hey, LeBron has 60 points through 3 quarters. Do you want to pay 99 cents to watch the finish? Or do you want to place a wager on if he's going to beat Kobe's 81-point record? And if you place a wager, we'll let you watch for free. And if you time it right, and it's in the right text about the right game to the right person, it's really hard for them to say no to both those options. There's a lot of money that's going to come in there as they start figuring out how to sell these single-track access to games, plus gambling, plus the curation of when to send those out. I'm neck deep in gambling data pretty much every day these days.
It's exciting.
It is exciting. It's exciting, and it's also scary. As I told a bunch of people before this got started, I liken gambling to alcohol. It increases tax revenue for the states, it brings entertainment to the masses, and it's going to destroy lives and families. And we're not ready for that. There's so many studies from countries overseas like Australia and England that have made tons of mistakes. There's studies that if children are exposed to commercials about gambling, they're 3 times as likely to become gambling addicts as adults. We're going to make all the mistakes in the book because it's state by state. There isn't a federal guideline. There isn't a federal framework for when we can advertise or how we can advertise. And I think it's going to be messy. I think it's going to be messy until we hear enough bad stories that someone's going to come in and say, look, we need a guideline. We need something on the federal level, or at least a framework that all states can use. We need safety checks. We need a way to limit people. We need to inform books if someone has had a problem so they don't, bet their kids, $5.29, their college savings on if the Packers are going to cover. That sort of thing I think is still scary, and we still have to figure out.
Awesome. Well, it's been really awesome talking with you. I want to know if there's anything you'd like to sort of share as we wrap up. Any final thoughts?
I have more fun stories. I don't know why I'm yelling all of a sudden. Some you'll have to hear at Firehouse at 8:30 if you want to come. But yeah, I'd love to hear what the audience has.
All right, let's do it. Let's give Mark a round of applause then. All right, folks, so I'm going to pass this around to anyone who has a question, and you guys can just share it with each other. Anyone want to start us off? You got one here? All right, we'll start off here.
Mark, one application, it seems, of excitement analytics and perhaps gambling too has to do with sports bars. How does your model fit into something, not sports books necessarily, but like pure sports bars or like Buffalo Wild Wings or things like that?
Absolutely. I think if you think in your head of what a sports book at a big casino looks like, and then what you think in your head what a good sports bar looks like, they kind of look the same, and they're going to merge much more. I'm working with one sports bar on a concept to help them manage their TVs. I think anyone that's been to a sports bar, sports fan or not, has had the experience of, I just want to watch this game. And you can't find the bartender with the remote. The bartender can't find the game. They're just hitting the up button, searching and searching and searching and searching, and can't find it. It's 2019. We shouldn't be doing that still. So what we're working on is an app that will get installed in this bar and allow them to use the curation about which game should be on which TV at which time. Helping them understand that, okay, this channel has been on ESPN News all day. There's a no-hitter through 8. There's a triple overtime game, 2 channels over. We should get that over. With the pitch that the more exciting the game is, the longer they'll stay, they'll get that extra beer, that extra bucket of wings, increase the ticket size, and they're going to make more money. And the vision is the bartender can pull out their phone and say, put the Yankees game on TV4, and it just happens.
Hey, Mark, quick question about starting off in sales. You're starting off as a computer science guy, no sales experience, not really many contacts in the sales world. Where do you start? How do you end up getting into Sports Illustrated, CBS, and places like that?
That's a great question. I think there are lots of different strategies, but the one that has worked the best for me, because my biggest skill is creating, I use that as my sales cycle. So MLB TV, or I should say MLB Advanced Media, recently got bought by Disney. They are a powerhouse. They streamed a bunch of MLB content for years, and they got so good at it, folks like HBO started saying, hey, can you do the streaming for us too? Like, these guys are the best. They're so good, it's really hard to get their attention because they know they're really good. And I couldn't get it in. For years, I wanted to do this, watch the last inning of a no-hitter for 99 cents sort of deal. Couldn't get in. And then one year, I bought an MLB TV package for $50 or some deal so I could watch the Yankees online. And I remember I was just watching the Yankees over and over, watching the Yankees. And I thought, wait a second, why am I just watching the Yankees? Why am I not watching the most exciting game? So it took 48 hours and had a little sprint where I put all the normal work to the side, and I built a browser extension for MLB TV that sort of married it with my data. So for MLB TV, you can go online, you can watch all the games, but when I married my data with it, you could hit a little button, and all the scores would show up on the side of your browser, color-coded by which games right now are most exciting. You could hit this little button called Auto-Tune, and it would automatically jump from stream to stream based on which game was most exciting. It's kind of like the Red Zone channel, but completely automated. I called it Warning Track. Now, just building it isn't very exciting. So I live blogged it back when blogging was a thing. I would do blog posts every few hours. I would post database schemas. I would put up polls on what it should be called. I'd post on Twitter, Facebook, everything I had, everything that was happening. Remove that fourth wall so they could see the creation process. And I got an email from them within a week. Eventually, we had a call, and they told me to take it down, but I got their attention, and that's the most important thing. I mean, I think you really have to play to your strengths. And for me, it wasn't being the alpha and showing up at the doorstep or going to that networking event and just finding the right person. They're all up in New York. That's a hard thing to do. But by using my skills of creation and making sure they could see it along the way, that's worked for me multiple times with multiple companies. One other exercise I'll just say really quickly. If you're just getting started, something I always recommend, take a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle. Turn off your phone, take away all the distractions. On one side, write down everyone who's a fan of me. On the other side, everyone that's not. Is anyone starting up something right now? Be brave, sure. What are you starting up? Give me one. Tell me a little more. Be a little more discreet. Give me something direct. Direct and just simple.
How can we get technology into the oldest and the youngest hands?
Okay, so let's say that's something about, because I'm not sure if I'm totally following it, but let's say it's building apps that, I'm just going to tweak you a little bit, that my Aunt June could use. I was trying to help her find a way to get somewhere on the bus, and the app I use, she was completely confused by. So you think about, let's say I was going to build an app that is for senior citizens getting around. People that are a fan of me. Hospitals. Because if the person can't get there, they can't make money. People that aren't a fan of me. Uber and Lyft. They don't like me. People that are a fan of me. AARP, probably. People that are a fan of me. Insurance companies. If someone's elderly trying to get to the hospital or something like that, they might get injured trying to get on the bus. This might be, or an easier way to do it. Sort of doing that brainstorming exercise, because often when you go down the list of who's a fan, that's generally a list of people that you can sell to first. They are the folks that are invested in your success. So whether they give you money or just retweet something that you're working on, that's a good way to think about where do I start and what do I do first. I'm sorry, what was your question?
Well, no problem. Thanks for being here today. So I had a question very similar to this gentleman over here. It was basically, talking about sales and how you're reaching out. And it sounds like you answered it that you weren't actually doing much outreach. You were just putting out a lot of your content and sharing what you were creating, and you automatically started to bring a lot of those people in. Because, I'm in sales myself, and so I always appreciate what you were bringing. You were saying, like, I just be nice with people. I just am courteous, and I remember people and that kind of thing. Because I get all the stories about, how salespeople, the negative stuff about salespeople. Anyway, so I wanted to see if there was any other things you had experienced when you were reaching out, or if you had failures, or if you did any of that. But you sounds like it was all purely just by creating content and blogging, and people came to you.
A lot of it, but also a lot of failures. I remember I was pitching Comcast, and Comcast is the crown jewel. They're one of the biggest when it comes to for Excitement Analytics, biggest possible customer, because they have 15 million customers. Yeah. And I'd pitched them for years and years and years, and finally said, you know what, Mark, we're ready. We're going to use either you or your competitor. Give us your best pitch. And I went in and I thought I nailed it. And I found out on a Friday that they were going with my competitor. And I was crushed. And I remember I wrote them back really quick. It's like, oh, I'm really sorry to hear that. What could I have done better? And they said, well, it doesn't matter what they said. I don't want to share too much about that. But anyway, it didn't work out. But I was crushed. And I remember sitting on my couch all weekend. I didn't get any sleep. I was talking to a friend of mine. I felt like I'd been dumped. I felt like someone broke up with me. I just didn't understand why. And so I did what any smart, broken up person would do, I bought a plane ticket on the Sunday. I flew out to San Jose, and I showed up on the doorstep Monday with 12 pies of Domino's pizza and a flash drive comparing what I thought the top 10 games were in the World Cup. So this must have been 2014 or so, something like that. How my system rated the top 10 games of that World Cup versus my competitor. And I said, hey, we're better than them. I understand that you're going with them. Keep us in mind if it doesn't work out. Flew home, slept like a baby. Fast forward a year and a half, I get the call from Comcast. They say, hey, we want to use you. I was flying back from Australia at the time, and I stopped in California on my way back, and I was meeting a bunch of people just to get started as quickly as possible. And one guy said, hey, haven't we met before? And I said, no, you don't look familiar. And he said, wait, weren't you the guy with the pizzas? He's like, yeah, that's me. So, I mean, I think sometimes just trying to be nice and being straightforward and open pays dividends. Sure.
So you're still a one-man operation.
Yeah.
Why have you continued to go that way and not scale out and hire more people?
Don't get me wrong, I'm tired. Sometimes it's rough. I had a data center go down last night, and my phone was ringing off the hook, just like alarms that something was broken. Because I'm a one-man shop, the system, I'm really proud of the architecture. It's able to figure out when things are broken and automatically adjust, so I don't have to get out of bed, but it still alerts me that something's wrong. Honestly, I think a lot of it is, I think there is a path that we're told is the right path to go down. Raise money as quickly as you can, get as big as you can. I'm fascinated by the WeWork IPO. I've been a member of WeWork for years. They are the poster child for raising a bunch of money, getting as big as you can. And I'm fascinated to see what happens. I mean, I think everyone in startups often are measured by how close to that you can get. How big of a valuation can you get? How much can you raise? And I'm taking a different path. And I mentor because taking a different path hopefully gives me a different type of advice. I tell everyone I meet with, my job as a mentor is to give you my advice. Your job as a mentee is to understand my bias. Every mentor has bias, and it's colored by our past experiences. And I'm going to be anti-raising money. Part of that is because I've done it without raising money. Part of that is because my competitor's run by a VC, and I can't stand that guy. I am very open about my bias, and it's important to be. You get in trouble when you're not open about your bias. And so, for me, it is hopefully showing that there's a different way, especially when the people that I try to fight for are the folks that aren't able to get that VC money as readily as they should. That if I can get to success this path, maybe it'll make it easier for them to do it as well.
No, I love the bootstrap method, so I'm totally supportive of that. I just heard what you were saying earlier about, if I could code all day long, I'd be so happy. So it sounds like you need to hire a sales guy.
If I was to hire someone, well played. If I had to hire a person, sales would be the first hire, absolutely.
So it sounds like you had a lot of other products or services that you made along the way that actually funded your business to continue going, which sounds really wise. I don't know that you did it on purpose. Maybe eventually you learned how to do that. So I'm interested about that. How did you learn how to make that decision, how to choose what was a wise investment of your time and resources versus what may be a distraction?
Sure. Around 2009, 2010-ish, I was broke, completely broke. And I had to get a side job. I worked at HomeAway. Loved it. But I remember feeling like a failure because I had, I'd burned all the ships. I was going all in on Are You Watching This? And to take a side job, I felt like I had failed. But it ended up being an amazingly smart decision because it allowed me to get some perspective. I was working on the same thing all day, every day. To be able to have sort of a playpen where I could go work on something else. And then when I got home, get to work on my stuff and be excited about it again because I hadn't gotten to work on it all day, and to make money so I could get out of debt ended up being an important stretch for me. I did a few things that weren't sports related to keep the lights on while I waited for the economy to come back, as I waited for customers to say yes. And it felt terrible at the moment, but it gave me really important perspective and runway to keep going.
So what about the products, or I think you made some apps and you made some other, how did you decide? Did you follow the customer, follow the money?
I try not to build a product until there's someone that wants to buy it. I'm lucky in that I can build things fast enough that between the time someone says yes and then they say, okay, let's see it, usually I could crank it out fast enough. But there was a great product that someone at DirecTV asked me to build. They wanted a DVR extender product. And because it's satellite, the internet connection was a little tricky. So they couldn't, let's say a game was running. NFL games, fun fact, whatever it says in your electronic program guide of how long the game's going to run, 70% of NFL games run longer than that. That's why 60 minutes always gets cut off if you ever try to record it. Because of that, they wanted to wait for the DVR to be smart and extend the recording. But they couldn't check constantly if the game was still going. They need to know ahead of time how long it was going to run. So I said, hey, can you help us with this? And I thought about it for a bit, and I said, yeah, actually, I can. I have all the data of how long games run, so I can predict how long a game's going to run before it even starts. Almost like GPS for exactly how long it's going to take before you get to the end. So for me, it's about listening to customers. I try to end every sales meeting with, if you could wave a magic wand, what product could I drop on your lap tomorrow? 80% of the time, it's something I don't have or can't build. 10% of the time, it's something I go build really quickly. 10% of the time, it's something that's sitting on a shelf that I just forgot to tell them about. So listening to the customer is critical.
As a coder myself, building products, a lot of times I get caught in paralysis by analysis and how to start. How do you decide on your stack when you're starting to build? Where do you start? Do you just go with what you know best, or do you actually do any research into what to do? What's the process?
Running a one-man shop, honestly, doing any sort of entrepreneurship, you're going to learn a ton about yourself. I know that I'm great at the first 80%. I can knock it out. The last 20% is like pulling teeth. And that's just what I've learned about myself over the years. Whether it's painting my bathroom, whether it's building a new app, like 80%, I'm great. And so I don't try to fight that. For me, it is, I know I love starting, so I just start. I build it out, and then I sort of create carrots for myself to do the last 20%. Planning, I'm not always the best at planning. Part of that is I've had the same code base for 13 years. For the geeks out there, I'm just shy of 10,000 commits in source control, and I've written every single line of code. I may not remember writing the code, but I know that I'm the one that checked it in. So for me, I'm lucky in that it's like an old baseball glove. I know the code very, very well. So for me these days, often it's about understanding what the handicaps are for me. For me, it's the last 20. I know that's not the case for everyone. To paint with a broad brush, just start. The sooner you can get something working end to end, get the first draft done, and then refine. It's really easy to think that I need to make this perfect at the start, but sometimes getting started is the most important step. Anything else? Yeah.
I don't know how to phrase this where it's like everybody's at the sports bar, right?
Sure.
So you talked about a couple different things there. So one, it's like maybe we can get people to drink a little bit less, maybe by introducing betting. Maybe people make less bad decisions. And then the second thing is like I've been like working with QR codes here and there more and more. It's like, why couldn't you just have a QR code on the wall? It's like just vote for whatever you want. It's like everybody in the bar can just like scan it.
Oh, sure.
I was hoping to phrase that as like a question so that it was like a little less.
No, I get where you're going. I mean, I think the problem is if you're a sports fan and you see, let's say, a commercial on ESPN, what they call the game of the week is the game that's on ESPN. And CBS does the same and Fox does the same, but often that's not the most exciting game. I think a big part of what we're about is zigging when the buzz is zagging somewhere else. Because often it's a game that no one's thinking about that is suddenly exciting, and it's not on anyone's radar.
Yeah, I started getting the notifications for the Astros on my watch.
Okay, exactly. I mean, it's that sort of thing where it's not always about what you're focused on. It's about this thing over here that maybe you're not paying attention to, and I think that's where the real value is. I'll leave you guys with one story, and then let's go get drinks or hang out or whatever, or get drinks. I was flying from LA to New York. I was meeting with CBS, and this was about, we were going to tweet on their behalf on the March Madness TV Twitter account. Anytime there's exciting games, I was excited about this. I was coming from LA, I was running late as always, and I was on a red eye. And a friend of mine, I just started traveling a lot. A friend of mine who traveled a lot said, be comfortable, it's the only way to get through it, put on sweatpants, whatever you need to do. So I'm rushing. I change, I put on sweatpants, t-shirt, fleece, super comfortable. I was in this tiny little bathroom. I didn't have a chance to change my shoes. Like, whatever, I'll just wear the shoes. I'll take them off when I get on the plane. Got on the plane, window seat, passed out, perfect. Land at LaGuardia, no, JFK. Write some emails, getting ready for the CBS thing. I get down to baggage claim, and they don't know where my bag is. And I have 2 hours to get to this meeting at CBS. And I'm wearing sweatpants and a fleece. So I panic. I hustle into Midtown Manhattan. I run into an H&M, grab a t-shirt, put it on. Nothing else looks good. I run across the street. I go to the Gap. I get underwear. I get jeans. I get a jacket. I run into the dressing room, put it all on, run to the cashier, and just say, scan me. And she just boop, 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 one by one, run to a cab, get to CBS, maybe like 4 minutes late. I sit down and I think, wow, I dodged a bullet. I can't believe I pulled this off. And as we start the conversation, I realize I have the white security tab still attached to my jacket, and I have to sit like this the entire meeting so they don't think I stole my clothes. Got the deal, though. Returned the jacket right afterwards because it was way too expensive. But as you start an entrepreneurial journey, if you are on one right now, you're going to have dark days. I tell everyone, don't do it like I did it. Have a co-founder. It's the #1 mistake I've made, 100%. I regret not having a co-founder. It's important to celebrate the wins. It's also important not to dwell on the losses. You're going to have both. Having a co-founder really helps you stay even keel. But no matter what, you're going to learn a ton about yourself. People say the journey is what it's all about. I don't know. The journey can be kind of crappy sometimes. But what you can learn about yourself, about what you're good at, what you're not, if you can learn to be honest with yourself about what you're good at and what you're not, as a person, there's a lot of growth. So go do it. And then, but before that, come have drinks at Firehouse. Thank you, Damon. Thanks for coming out, guys. I appreciate it.